On June 17, 1994, after a thrilling and captivating televised low-speed chase watched by millions, former American football star O.J.Simpson surrendered to the Los Angeles police. He was charged in the case of the alleged murder of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown, and her new lover 5 days earlier. Over the course of 9 months, the trial's expenses skyrocketed to $20 million, with a voluminous record spanning 50,000 pages. Nearly 150 witnesses were called to testify. 19 television stations. Almost 10 radio stations. Dozens of newspapers. 2,000 journalists covered and reported live on the case. Over 120 cameras were placed in the courtroom. A study estimated that the U.S. economy suffered a $25 billion loss due to employees neglecting work to follow the trial of the century. So why was this case dubbed the trial of the century? Nicole Brown and O.J. Simpson met in 1977 when Brown was just 18 years old and working as a waitress at Daisy, a private club in Beverly Hills. Despite Simpson being married, they began dating. Simpson divorced his first wife in March 1979 and married Brown on February 2, 1985. Their love story blossomed as they had 2 children together. However, their marriage was described as a classic example of domestic violence, as Brown signed a prenuptial agreement stipulating that she would be prohibited from working after marrying Simpson. She reported numerous instances of abuse by Simpson, but due to her financial dependence on him, she felt conflicted and even concealed information about the altercations. On one occasion, Simpson beat her to the point of breaking her arm, and to avoid his arrest, she told emergency room staff that she fell off a bike. She also wrote about him publicly assaulting her, including during sexual encounters and even in front of family and friends. Out of 62 incidents of violence, the police were called 8 times, but Simpson was arrested only once. Brown filed for divorce on February 25, 1992, citing irreconcilable differences. After the divorce, Brown claimed that Simpson continued to harass and stalk her, even threatening to kill her if she had relationships with others. She even drafted a will, and feeling her life was in danger, she called Sojourn a women's shelter. But because of fear of Simpson, she hesitated to stay at Sojourn because she had refused his reconciliation request while losing a set of house keys a few weeks earlier. And it was precisely these keys found on Simpson when he was arrested for assaulting Brown and Ron Goldman. Before the nightmare unfolded, Brown, along with her family and a few friends, attended a performance at Paul Revere Elementary School in the afternoon. Brown's 9-year-old daughter, Sydney, participated in the performance. Simpson was also present but sat alone and did not interact with Brown or her family. Later, Brown's group went to dine at Mezzaluna Restaurant, where she encountered Ronald Goldman, an acquaintance from a few months prior who was working as a waiter there. They left the restaurant around 9 p.m. Upon returning home, Brown called the restaurant because her mother had forgotten her glasses. Goldman kindly offered to bring them to Brown's house. After finishing his shift, Goldman changed clothes and drove to Brown's house around 10 p.m. And it was here that both of them met their most brutal end, being fatally stabbed. Goldman endured stab wounds nearly everywhere. He had injuries to his neck, face, ears, chest, thigh, hands, forearm, and abdominal area. The autopsy report highlighted that while some of these injuries would have been non-fatal, the stab wounds to his neck and torso were what ultimately led to his death. Wounds found on his hands, face, and upper body showed that he fought hard to live. It is known that Goldman was 1.8 meters tall, strong, muscular, and knowledgeable in martial arts. To kill him, the perpetrator must have been larger and stronger than him for sure. While Brown suffered the same fate, her body lay crumpled next to Goldman at the bottom of the courtyard stairs. Brown had been stabbed 4 times in the neck. Her throat had been cut so deeply that the knife had penetrated her cervical spine. the medical examiner wrote that the incised wound of the neck is gaping and exposes the larynx and cervical vertebral column. The medical examiner also said the stab wounds may have been made first, and after Brown lay unconscious, the killer grabbed her hair and made the cut that would end her life. And the prime suspect, undoubtedly, is O.J.Simpson, who lived just 3 kilometers away, standing at 1.88 meters tall and weighing nearly 100 kilograms. Not to mention, the marriage between Simpson and Brown was in a state of tension, and Simpson had more than enough motive to commit the crime. And the gripping chase between the police and O.J. Simpson on June 17, 1994, was broadcasted live, even prompting the interruption of the NBA Finals to make way for this case. What followed was a sprawling investigation, a trial dubbed as the trial of the century with a plethora of evidence, witness testimonies, heated arguments, and notably, the public's intrigue not just because Simpson was a celebrity but also due to the complexities and sensitivities surrounding issues of race. In public opinion polls, the majority of African Americans believed the former football star, a person of color, was entirely innocent. Meanwhile, the vast majority of white Americans considered him to be the perpetrator. At the trial, the prosecution argued that Simpson had lost his mind after losing his wife, leading him to commit the murders of his ex-wife and her lover out of revenge. Simpson, after committing the crime, returned home and quickly headed to the airport to fly to Chicago. There were numerous bloodstains found in Simpson's house and on the Bronco. A strand of Simpson's hair was found on Brown's knit cap. Brown's blood was found on a pair of socks in Simpson's house. Simpson had a cut on his finger. A glove was found in Simpson's garden, matching the one found near Brown's body. And there were many other pieces of evidence sufficient to convict Simpson. However, Simpson's defense team argued that the prosecution was too hasty and simply wanted to pin the blame on Simpson. And due to lack of convincing evidence, Simpson was acquitted. A year later, on October 23, 1996, Simpson was again charged in a civil trial for the murders of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman in Santa Monica, California. Finally, on February 4, 1997, the jury concluded that Simpson was liable for several charges related to the murders of his ex-wife and her lover. The court ruled that Simpson had to pay $33.5 million in compensation to the victims' families. However, in reality, the families of the victims hardly received any compensation as Simpson declared bankruptcy. Later, Simpson lived off a $4 million pension fund established from his football days. He received over $20,000 per month from the fund, which is out of the court's touch. Simpson also moved to Florida to avoid having his compensation money seized according to the civil trial ruling in California. In 2006, Simpson wrote a book titled If I Did It. The book contained detailed descriptions of hypothetical actions Simpson could have taken if he wanted to kill his ex-wife and her lover. The book was scheduled for publication but was later canceled due to concerns about public outrage. The O.J. Simpson case's conclusion remains contentious, leaving questions unanswered despite the verdict. Seeking revenge isn't constructive in love or life. It often exacerbates conflicts. Instead, resolving conflicts, practicing forgiveness, and expressing emotions healthily are preferable. As for staying in toxic relationships like Nicole Brown did, it's a complex issue. While each situation is different, prioritizing personal well-being and finding ways to exit harmful relationships is crucial. What do you think? Just leave your comment below.